Too much traffic, so I'll just do it inside. Nice little wood motif. I need to have the USA Wrestling banner. That's one thing I'm missing.
All right, guys, we are live for the Keep Olympic Wrestling Google Hangout of the Week. I got a bunch of guys on here that I want to introduce you to. Let's just start with the left and work our way down. I'll just say your name. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your affiliation with wrestling. We'll start with Hayden.
I'm Hayden Tuma, and I'm on the FILA Junior Greco World Team.
Awesome. Julia?
I'm Julia Salata, and I am on the Junior Women's Freestyle World Team as well.
Thank you. Mr. Bader?
My name is Mark Bader. I work with Flow Wrestling, and grew up wrestling my whole life.
Thank you. Rich?
Rich Bender with USA Wrestling. Been around wrestling my whole life.
And Rulon?
Rulon Gardner, 2000 Olympic gold medalist, world champ, Olympic bronze medalist, and hopefully soon to see wrestling back in the Olympics.
Last but not least, the famous Mr. Gary Abbott.
Yep, Gary Abbott, Director of Communications, USA Wrestling, and why didn't you put my face up there?
What are you talking about, Gary?
Unfortunately, we're looking at it.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, guys. Well, I know we all have a lot of questions we want to ask these guys. I just wanted to kick this one off with Rulon. First off, could you describe the feeling of competing in the Olympic Games? You were in one of the biggest, greatest matches of all time. Can you describe how the Olympic Games played an impact in your life and why it needs to be kept in the Olympic Games?
Well, for me, it was kind of a surprise just to get to the Olympic Games, and then ultimately to go out and have an opportunity to wrestle Alexander Karelin and make it all the way to the finals like I did, and then to be able to move on and have a chance to wrestle at a second Olympic Games. It means, I think, a wrestler starts with almost no ability and then develop all the way through your career and ultimately make an Olympic team and represent your country. I think more than any medal, I think representing the flag and then ultimately the name USA and the United States of America, I think that made me more proud than getting the medal, because I was able to represent so many people who had the dream to make the Olympic team that didn't, and I was able to carry that for them, and it was a dream come true.
Now, Gary, I know you have a few questions for our panelists here. Why don't you just kick it off with Rich?
Yeah, no, I'd like to ask Rich a question. As one of the leaders of the Keep Olympic Wrestling movement, what do you think were the most important changes that wrestling's made since the announcement back in February, and how will that impact our chances in September's vote?
Well, that's a great question, Gary. And one thing I think is really obvious is that the sport's a lot better today than it was on February 12th. But what specifically has been changed? Obviously, there's been some leadership change at the highest level of our international federation, and I think now there's been changes within that federation that is considerably more willing to make the necessary changes to rules, to get input from fans and athletes and coaches to move our sport forward. There's also been governance changes to the international federation. Now athletes have a say and a voice at the very highest level. There's guaranteed female participation at the highest level, and I think, obviously, I think diversity is a strength, and I think that's something that is really going to make our sport better long term. Rule changes that have been made in the spirit of making it easier for spectators to understand, and I think we'd all stand up and cheer when I say we got rid of that ball pull or ball drop, and so I think. Those changes at the highest level have been incredibly significant. I think the International Olympic Committee is paying attention to that, and I think it will bode well for us here in a month.
Yeah, in that same spirit, what steps do we need to take in this final month, just to secure that vote?
Well, I think we need to continue to squarely stomp our foot down on the gas pedal to make sure that each one of the International Olympic Committee members are aware of the gravity that wrestling enjoys in the world, and obviously, like this weekend, the International Federation President Ned Lalovic is meeting with over a dozen IOC members at the World Track and Field Championships in Moscow. I think we've got to continue to to put our best foot forward to ensure that everyone knows the changes that have been made, as well as the significance of our history and really what wrestling brought to the table before this. And I think we're going to continue to do that along with the International Federation and national federations all over the world, and continue to push hard right up until September 8th.
Thank you, Rich. Got a question for Julia here. You're coming on strong on the senior circuit now. The Olympics are obviously a goal of yours. What does keeping wrestling in the Olympics mean to you, and what would it mean if you weren't able to have that opportunity?
When I started wrestling, the Olympics seemed such a far, it's that goal kind of seemed.
We lose Julia.
International senior tournaments, I kind of realized that that's a realistic goal, and to have that kind of taken away from me is kind of a bummer. I train hard, every day with the goal in mind of being an Olympic champion, and especially girls at my age group. We always kind of looked to that 2016 Olympic year. That's where we're going to be in our peak performance, peak age. So it's big to have wrestling come back for 2020 because that's the year that I'm looking to go compete, win a medal at.
Thank you. I just have one more question for Hayden. Right now you're one of our big high school stars here in the U.S. We've got FILA Juniors coming up next week in Bulgaria. What does it mean for you to get to compete on that world stage? I know you've done it before, but what does it mean to compete for the U.S. on the world level?
It actually means a lot to me. I've been training really hard for this, and I'm pretty excited to go and represent the U.S. And all the guys on the team that I'm on, we're all fired up. We're ready to go and compete and show everybody that the U.S. is strong in Greco as well as in freestyle too, and we're hoping to come back with some medals.
Well, how is preparation going for you guys? You guys have had camp all this week. How are things going down there?
Everything's been going good. We've been blending together really well. Nobody on the team is really getting left out. We're all hanging out together, and that's making us work harder and push ourselves to go the distance and reach the goals that we've set for ourselves, which is to come back with some medals and come back with a trophy as a team.
Awesome, man. I want to kick it over to Mark Bader. You have any questions, just fire away, man.
Hey, I actually wanted to follow up with Hayden and Julia. So, you're I'm thinking like getting training camps, you're getting with these people around your age, like they're elite level athletes from all over the country, and you guys are living together, training together. You've had this same lifestyle together. Can you talk about that a little bit? Hayden, you touched on it a little bit, but like the bond that's formed that otherwise you wouldn't meet these people who are like-minded and have the same interests, and maybe just talk about the relationships that you guys have formed with the people on your team going to go compete with you.
It's pretty amazing to just meet these other people from different states and share the same passion of wrestling that we all have together. And I feel like that's what makes us so close, is that we're all driven to one goal, and that's to be Olympic gold medalists one day and world champions here soon. But I just think it's amazing to meet people from different states that have the same mentality, that go through the same struggle of training every day and working hard just as much as I do or anybody else on the team does.
Cool. Julia, you got any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure she heard that one.
Yeah, it cut out.
I'm sorry. Just basically talking about the relationships you form with the people, on the world teams and these elite level athletes from probably all different cultures within the United States coming together and for this common, goal.
Yeah. It's awesome, especially because we've been having these combined age group camps with the cadet girls, junior girls, senior girls. We're all working for the same goal. We're competitors sometimes in a domestic competition. Then we get the opportunity to come in here and all work together and work towards our goals. We all want to be world champs at our respective age group levels, and it's just cool to sit down and talk with them at meals and stuff, and just discuss our training and like mental preparation. Everyone kind of bounces ideas off each other about what their best way to prepare is, and it's just a great way to train outside of the room as well, mentally, stuff like that.
Without wrestling, do you think there would be an opportunity to get together with like-minded people like that from all over the place?
Oh, no way.
Have that? No.
No, I mean, I'm sure there is, but not to the level that I have. I've learned so much being around so many different girls from so many different places around the country, internationally as well. I've made a lot of friends at international camps and stuff like that, and just it's cultural experience and stuff like that, and you can't
lose it.
I'm really grateful for that.
Nice.
So, got a question for Rulon. Last year, Rulon, you made a comeback and wrestled. Was curious if you still had the itch to get on the mat, and if not, maybe get involved with coaching.
Well, I'm actually living in Fort Collins now. I'm actually took a job with MyTech, so I'm actually working with the high school team. Had practice last night, helping the guys out, and I still love to get in and roll around a little bit, but it's kind of like time to have a career. But I still have an itch for it. I don't know if I'll be back on the mat, but I look forward to the opportunity to go out and train and be part of the team and just hopefully see these young athletes and see them achieve. Hey, Julia and Hayden, question for you. As an athlete for many years like I was, it was so important to me to represent my country and to walk out there. And I guess a question for you, and then a question hopefully you guys can answer, is what's going to make the difference between you and the other athletes around the world that want to represent their country? And I think it's an obligation for America that we have more, I feel, pride in ourselves to go out there. And it was an amazing feeling to win a medal. And how are you going to do things that most people don't think an American can do in wrestling? How are you going to be able to go out and compete this year and take it to the next level, ultimately, hopefully back in 2016? What are you going to do to make that difference in the next few months?
Julia, you can go first.
Okay. I think, especially with as much international wrestling as I've done this year, I've kind of learned that, you're not just wrestling for yourself. Like you said, you're really wrestling with the USA on your back and representing your country. And I always go out there to show not just what I'm capable of, but what USA Wrestling is capable of as well. We all train hard, but especially for women's freestyle, we kind of go in as underdogs sometimes. We're not seen at that same level as like Japan, China, those kind of countries. So I go out there to show that we can compete at the highest level and bring home medals, and that's why I hope to go and do at Junior Worlds. I'm going to wear that flag on my back with pride and hopefully bring home a medal for the Stars and Stripes. I want to hear that national anthem play before I leave Bulgaria.
Dude, that's not good for
Nick.
Hayden, you got anything?
Okay.
Yeah. For me, there's only 8 weights, and there's only 8 people that are going overseas to represent our country. So it's really important to me that I show everybody that the U.S. is strong in Greco, just like Russia or Bulgaria or Iran is. So I want to go and I want to represent our country as well as I possibly can, show them how we are nice, we are accepting of different kind of cultures and everything. So it's a big deal to go over there, especially because a lot of people have U.S. on their back as a target that they want to go and they want to kind of beat us. But we have to. I feel like we should present ourselves better when we go overseas and maybe make more friends, because the years before we really didn't communicate with other teams. But it's important to let them know that we're strong.
I think we lost him there.
So I got a question for Rich. Rich, could you give us your thoughts on FILA President Levitch and what his leadership has been like during our crisis?
Well, and I touched on it a little bit earlier in terms of his willingness to listen and I think the feedback that we've gotten from all the consultants and other members within the International Olympic Committee that he's met with is that he's done an incredible job of really endearing himself to the International Olympic Committee family. I think he comes across as, and it's true, I think, as a very honest, sincere guy that has an incredible passion, for wrestling. And I think he's done, a fantastic job stepping in and really changing the perception that a lot of those people have of our sport. And I think the proof will ultimately be in the pudding in a month. But I think by all accounts, the feedback that we're getting, I met with Scott Blackman just couple days ago, and he had a chance to. Scott Blackman is the president of the the executive director of the U.S. Olympic Committee, and he met Ned Lalovic for the first time at the Association of National Olympic Committee meetings in Lausanne, and he said that the guy came across as a really genuine, good guy that has an incredible passion for wrestling and is has an ability to articulate to people the importance of our sport. So I think he's done a great job so far.
Rich, can you talk about or speak to the unity that the wrestling community has shown? I mean, you were over there in Iran for the World Cup, and that was a big deal, and then they came over here for Rumble on the Rails. Can you talk about how the wrestling world's coming together? Yeah,
and certainly there are 177 national wrestling federations around the world that make up FILA. And certainly, obviously there's probably, well, there is significant diversity amongst those 177 nations in terms of the importance that wrestling has in their country. But it's really, I'll tell you, this recommendation, this decision, has galvanized the wrestling community worldwide. And countries like Iran and Russia, obviously those countries that you would suspect that would be pay attention to this issue. Have been involved, but also other countries, and for example, Daniel Igali is the president of the National Wrestling Federation in Nigeria, and the African nations have come together to support this effort, and I think it's been something that I think we're going to look back at this after the September 8th decision and identify this as a renaissance for our sport, an opportunity for us to make that the sport's gotten better. The wrestling the wrestling nations around the world have united, and I think that's a really cool thing.
Rich, I got one more question, kind of on this whole, really on the specifics of September 8th. I believe back in May, all the 8 or whatever sports had a 20-minute pitch and then a 10-minute Q&A. Is that right?
Yeah,
is it the same thing, or is there different? Do you know how the format's going to be?
It's the same thing, only the audience is now the 103 members of the International Olympic Committee. So it won't be the same presentation, by the way. Same presenters: Daniel Igali, Carol Wynn, Lise Legrand, all athletes. Lise was an Olympic medalist for France in 2004. Carol Wynn, Olympic champion in 2008, and one of the more high-profile female wrestlers in the history of women's wrestling. Daniel Igali, the Olympic champion, who unfortunately for us, beat Lincoln McIlravy in Sydney and also in Turkey in '99. And then Jim Shear, who will kind of anchor the team and serve as the moderator, and the Ned Lalovic, the president. That makes up the team. They'll present to the entire 103 members of the International Olympic Committee, and there'll be a vote right there.
What was that pitch like? Were you at in May?
I was.
Was it video? Was it talking? Yeah. Was it a combination of?
Yeah, so it's a combination. It's there's a video that there's a couple of videos that play at specific times of the presentation, but also photos that rotate appropriately through the entire presentation. And as you can imagine, well, maybe not as you can imagine, Jim Shear's responsibility was to talk about the changes that that have been made to the governance structure of the International Federation. The athletes talk specifically about their story and how wrestling's provided them with an opportunity to achieve things off the mat. Example, Lise Legrand is the vice president of the French Wrestling Federation. Carol Wynn, who obviously Olympic champion, but the daughter of 2 Vietnamese refugees. And Daniel Igali's story is unbelievable. A kid, grew up in Nigeria, and in his presentation said he realized that he probably wasn't going to have the opportunities that he needed to have to achieve to maximize his potential in Nigeria, and immigrated to Canada, and won a world championship and won an Olympic gold medal, and then returned to Nigeria he currently serves in Parliament in Nigeria and is also the just newly elected president of the Nigerian Wrestling Federation. 3 really inspiring stories, and then obviously Ned Lalovic's there to add some other things to the presentation. But that's kind of in a nutshell what it looks like.
So my next question's pretty much to everybody. This week we launched a Take a Stance program where we're asking people around the world to take a wrestling stance. and we're going to encourage everyone to check out the information on that. It's #TakeAStance. But I think maybe we should get everybody here, including Rulon, to give us their wrestling stance. Is that possible? I mean, we're going to be capturing this, so everyone gets to see it. Rudy, you got one of your good Greco stances for us?
All right, let's do it.
Come on, let's get her done.
Bring it.
Is it a good stance?
Come on, Bader.
Oh, I'm ready, Gary.
Emil, you're atrophied.
No, I'm not. Julia, that's nice. Oh, Gary. Oh, man.
Take a picture, please.
Hey, as Mike Moyer would say, keep your elbows in and your head up.
Oh, man. There we go.
Red
All
alert.
right, Bader.
That was scary.
Hey, I have a
let's
question
take it
for
back.
the athletes.
Yeah.
So obviously both of you have high-profile former Olympians on the coaching staff with Marcy Van Dusen and Rodney Smith. If you just talk a little bit about what it's like to be in the room with those. I mean, obviously you also have Mark Halverson and Jason Mormon in there, as well as Aaron Tomio and certainly the Steve Frazier, Momir Pekovic. But what's it like to actually have to train every day with such high-profile athletes that have had success at the very highest level?
It's actually been pretty good training with them.
Julia, why don't you go ahead? I think we lost Hayden there.
All right.
So, it helps out a lot.
Hayden, we missed everything you said.
All right. Well, it helps out a lot to have coaches that have competed at the level that we're competing at and at higher levels. So they give a lot of insight on everything that we'll be facing and the type of competition that we'll be wrestling. And they've seen it all pretty much. So it's pretty great to have those kind of coaches helping you out, so you know what to expect and what to be ready for when we get over in the international competitions.
Julia?
Yeah, just building off what Hayden said, that they have so much experience, especially like Marcy, she's done so much. She's, obviously famous for beating Yoshida. Just being able to kind of like pick her brain a little bit. I've known Marcy for a while, and she has so much insight on what to expect over there, different.
And you two are just killing us, aren't you?
Rich, you brought up Jason Mormon. He's my college coach at King University, so having him there in my corner really helps as well. Knows a lot of stuff. He's a great guy, and I'm lucky to have him over there coaching me. Yeah.
Cool.
I got a question for Rulon. Which was harder for you, Rulon, winning the first medal or going through the frostbite, having your toe cut off, and coming back for that second Olympic medal? I mean, which challenge was bigger for you?
Probably as a challenge, no matter what, I think it's probably still the first gold medal. The frostbite challenge, that wasn't really wrestling related. That was more of a life mistake. And for me, the challenge to represent myself, in America at the Sydney Olympics was kind of like as a kid in a candy store, because I walk in and I'm just like, this is the coolest thing, and lights and shiny stuff, and ultimately to see Carellin and just to be in his aura, and then ultimately to beat him was pretty amazing. And then 04 was pretty awesome too, because having to beat Dramil Byers, after winning a world championship and all the adversity. But you can't knock Olympic gold medal. It's amazing to be able to walk out there and win a medal and stand on the podium. I was awestruck just standing up there, being like, did this really just happen? And I think that's what makes wrestling so special, is those moments like Gable and Smith and Kale and this last year Jordan, and then my gold medal. Those are the things that really truly make it special.
Man, I thought you were going to say losing that hot wing eating contest to Steve Frazier in Phoenix.
Well, that was a distant second. Hey, Rich, got a question for you. With the international wrestling community, how do you feel? Are they putting a lot of effort in? Are they actually spending their time beating the doors down to say, hey, we know that you're an IOC member. We need your vote. Are you seeing a lot of that from our friends around the world?
We are. In fact, I got an email this morning from our friends at the British Wrestling Federation, who had contact with both the British Olympic Committee members just yesterday with Craig Reedy and the princess that's on the IOC. And obviously I think that's a example of what's going on in literally every wrestling federation around the world that has IOC members. And I think that we'll see that result pay off in Buenos Aires. I think so. The answer to your question, yeah, we're seeing. I think a lot of people saw the Japanese Japanese Wrestling Federation was able to accumulate over 1 million signatures from non-wrestling people in most part around their whole country in support of the effort. So yeah, this this battle won't be won by one country. It's going to be won by an international federation that really understands their role and responsibility and the need for them to change. And then closely behind them is the 177 national wrestling federations around the world doing their part. Obviously some have more resources and capabilities than others, but all doing their part to have an impact. If that's impacting one ILC member, if that's a wrestling federation, an example, the Wrestling Federation in Canada with 2 ILC members, their work to ensure that those members understand what wrestling's all about and the changes that have been made and why wrestling absolutely has to stay in the program.
Is there anybody on this that could help move it forward to the international community and try to let those IOC members know that it's not just important around the world, it's important in America also?
Well, I think we've been as a community hammering that home since February 12th, and I think every person that has a contact with any IOC member has been encouraged to reach out and ensure that they know that wrestling's here and standing up and being heard. So yeah, it's about boots on the ground for sure, and every single wrestler or person that has an affinity for our sport doing what they can to push the message.
Okay, I have a question for Rulon. So what Coach Smith and Coach Frazier were talking about when they were up at the world and Olympic level is that they would visualize the match before it even happened, like run through scenarios in their head of how the match could go down. What kind of techniques did you use before you went and wrestled in the Olympics?
I would always, I remember, instinctively with Carellin walking out in my mind the night before, actually walking out and beating him. I beat him 5-0, and I beat him 5-3, and I never thought about after winning and running around with the flag and stuff. I never thought of that. I just thought about taking care of business, finishing it up. But then probably the thing that really mattered to me, and I had an opportunity to share it with the last few Olympic teams, and some of them didn't want to hear it, but then some of them did. And I just said, just walk out there and imagine yourself losing this match and the regret that you feel and walking off that mat and, getting up tomorrow and realizing you have a chance to, go back out there and beat the same guy. And so for me, it was kind of a gut check saying, hey, you know what, if I don't win this match, my whole year, that everything I've done to this point is a waste of time. And so I made sure that I gave everything I had. It wasn't just a match. That was my whole life. That was every ounce of energy I ever had. I put it in a play, in practice, in a match, and I just gave everything I had and walked off. And sometimes I regretted it, for 1-1 in overtime, and the odds of one mistake that I made, he capitalized and he beat me. And if it would have changed, maybe I'd have won a second gold medal, and that would have been something that I kind of regret now because I wasn't prepared for it. But out of all the variables in wrestling, sooner or later you're going to make a small mistake, and I did. And you got to learn from those decisions and just walk out there and give everything you can, because there's nothing worse than somebody say, oh, I just had a down match. Bull crap, there's no down matches. You walk out there, every match is your last match, and you wrestle like it's to the death. And that's what wrestling means to me, from the Greeks and the Romans and from the history of the sport. Every time you walk out there, you want to be the best wrestler ever on that mat.
Hey, Hayden, I'll add something there too. Don't think that fear didn't play a factor too. Go back and Google some of Carellin's matches earlier in his career, especially guys like Craig Pittman, I know, Rulon certainly didn't want that to happen to him.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it happened 97. He threw me on my head 3 times. I broke 2 vertebrae in my neck. So my philosophy in 2000 walking out there is, hey, you know what? At least I'm going to have a cool video to show my kids, oh, this is where Dad broke his neck again. That's what, honestly, that's what I thought. But then I was like, heck, I'm guaranteed a silver medal, so why not walk out there and have the world say, hey, you know what? He got his butt kicked by Corellin, but he put up a hell of a fight. And then at the end of the day, I won the match, and I was everybody's like, oh, you probably thought you were going to win. No, I just was happy to be there.
Hey, I'll add a little something to that a lot of people don't know, but the International Federation, the day of Rulon's gold medal match in Sydney, held a reception in the wrestling venue honoring Alexander Corellin's 4th gold medal. And that just goes to show you where the sport was, and the leaders of the International Federation thought Rulon's chances were to win. It was interesting conversation with the then president saying that I don't think that Rulon's favored, but I assure you there's a chance that he could win. But certainly, obviously, Rulon went out and got the job done and created one of the most incredible moments in the history of our sport.
Yeah, and Corellin did let go of his hands. He did it right in front of us, Rich, right? You won that one.
I just wanted a hug. That's all I wanted.
All right, so we're running a little low on time. I wanted to kick it over to Bader and Gary. If you guys had any final questions for our panelists.
Go first, Mark, please.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't know if it's questions as much as just, like, I guess a summary of my thoughts on this is, like, I think the very first thing, the rules being changed, was a game changer across the board, from universities to Russian Nationals, the World Team Trials, to Fargo. I think it just has made the sport so much more exciting than I've seen since, I don't know what, the last 4, 5, 6, 8 years. And I'm confident we're gonna get the win in Buenos Aires, and a little nervous, but confident. You gotta always be nervous, just like you're getting ready to wrestle.
That's good. I guess my last question's for Rulon. Tell me about the support you've felt out there in the world about the Olympic quest. I mean, you're a pretty prominent wrestler. You've been making appearances for wrestling. What are people saying to you about wrestling's chances and why it's important for us to succeed?
Well, for me, and I know the guys the guys and the girls on the national team, every day I tell people, oh, I'm supporting this movement, and people are just like Jay Leno. He was so furious when we were on his show a few months ago. How dare they think about cutting wrestling? And I see that everywhere. I see people who have no idea what Olympic wrestling is, but they know that the sport of wrestling is one of the oldest Olympic sports, and to have that passion from people that don't even know about it, that means the world to me, because I know that people are standing up, and people will be outraged in the future if we don't get this win. And the last thing we can do right now is just sit back and think we got it, because right now we got to be out there knocking on every IOC door member and saying, hey, you know what? This kid won't go to the Olympics someday because of what you're doing. And use the guilt, use whatever we got. We got to stand up and fight right now, because if we don't, in a month, there's a chance that we may not be in the Olympics, and it'll be too late at that point.
I think that's a good segue there. I mean, there's a lot of things that people can do. FILA just launched this Thunderclap idea. You go to thunderclap.it, go to the Save Olympic Wrestling Thunderclap. It's basically you sign up for that, you donate your Facebook and Twitter profiles for one post. At one time, everyone at the same time posts something. So it's going to be really cool. Sign up for that if you haven't done that. Again, that's thunderclap.it. We've got links all over our Facebook page, too, if you want to check that out. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. If you guys have
who do we got next week, Richard?
Next week, right now, we have Daniel Lagali coming on. Rich was talking about a little bit.
Nice.
And we'll have a couple other more. We're still waiting on confirmation on that, but we will let you guys know as soon as we find out. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we will see you next Thursday.
And, hey, make sure to go to themat.com and see how Hayden and Julia do next week. I'll be over in Bulgaria making sure we get good news back.
Hey, good luck. Kick some butt over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. You guys, good luck out there, and represent us. Appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We good?